it is time to bring in our next guest. He is the editor-in-chief of thefourthperiod.com. You can follow him on twitter.com/thefourthperiod. It's our buddy Dave Pagnotta. What's up, Dave?
Not much, man. Just sitting in a rainy airport here in Vancouver.
Oh, that never happens.
No. No. Had a couple of good days, but the rain caught up to me.
What brought you out there?
A couple games. Doing a new little sports tourism piece on the city of Vancouver.
Ooh,
so
all right.
That, plus Kings and Canucks on Thursday, Leafs and Canucks last night. Good times.
Dave, last segment we were talking about the worst possible matchup for the Habs in the first round, and I said it's Tampa. I said based on the depth, based on the fact that they have Bishop healthy this year so far anyway, compared to last year, the young rookies they have, top offensive team, but we're still able obviously to play some defensive hockey, as we saw a few days ago in Montreal when they beat them. Seemed to be more physical as well at the time. I just think the Canadiens would get annihilated by Tampa Bay.
I think that would be definitely a matchup they'd want to avoid. Looking at Detroit, the Red Wings have a solid roster, but I'm more concerned about their defensive core versus that of Tampa Bay. I think Tampa's got a very well-rounded unit, plus they're tremendously explosive up front. And like you said, they're not afraid to throw the body around. So if the Habs can avoid somebody in the first round, in the playoffs in general, I would think and imagine that Tampa Bay would be one of them.
Dave, obviously Boston's had a bit of a resurgence here. They're actually, based on the fact that they have one less game played than Washington, they vaulted over them in terms of those two wild card spots. They're playing today at 7:30, very key, very pivotal game. What's your take on what can happen in the offseason if Boston makes the playoffs but it's out in the first round? Could they actually get rid of either the general manager or Claude Julien himself?
I think I hope not. I mean, just from a hockey standpoint, I think it's a ludicrous idea to even consider getting rid of your GM and your head coach, two guys that have brought you a Stanley Cup championship, helped bring you a Stanley Cup championship, that have had a winning pedigree for the last X amount of years. You look at Claude Julien and what he's done over the course of his career. He's had winning records. He's done very well for all the teams he's been a part of. And obviously the Stanley Cup with Boston should play a big factor too. This season was one in which the Boston Bruins just couldn't get their acts together and couldn't, from the start of puck drop in October, just weren't able to play consistent hockey. And it's great that they're, kind of getting back into the swing of things now. I don't know how much that'll really do for them throughout the rest of the rest of the season and into the playoffs. It looks like they're kind of solidifying their position in terms of being a playoff team this year, which is about time, because they've got definitely the talent there. It just seems like everyone just is having that off year all at the same time, and how you can fault the coach and the general manager for that, I don't understand. People can complain all they want about trading Tyler Seguin and trading Johnny Boychuk. The hands were absolutely tied. Chiarelli had limited options in terms of both situations. You can't really fault him for that either. And you move forward from here, and you look to see what kind of roster moves he makes in the offseason to make their team better. I can't see how changing the coach or GM makes any sense.
Chatting with Dave Pagnotta from thefourthperiod.com on Game Points with Matthew Ross, Mo Con, Stefano Micella here in studio as well. Elsewhere, big win today by the Red Wings over the Penguins, albeit without Evgeny Malkin. 42 saves for Peter Mrazek, who's been unbelievable when he's been in the nets this year with all the injuries that the Red Wings have had in goal. I'll tell you what, Dave, I know that Howard has that big contract, but how do the Wings not consider going with this guy and somehow moving Howard?
Well, I mean, they're gonna give him a few more starts throughout the rest of the season. I think for the playoff wise, you got to go with, providing he's healthy and everything like that, you got to go with the veteran in Jimmy Howard. But it definitely gives the Red Wings some flexibility moving forward, whether it's this offseason or whether they kind of ease into a bit of a platoon situation for next season, and then in a year from that, make a decision long term as to what they want to do between the pipes. It definitely gives Kenny Holland and the staff and managerial staff in Detroit some extra flexibility in how they want to kind of add to the roster and further improve the roster as they go. The young kids are really starting to step in, and eventually we're going to start to see the Pavel Datsyuk and the Henrik Zetterbergs kind of fade away a little bit over the next few seasons. and that's when we're going to start to see some of these younger kids really that are developing now really take on new form with Detroit and with the Wings. This is a team that still needs to address its blue line, and they've been looking at it for a long time. They almost acquired Dion Phaneuf, has been well publicized, and they'll reconvene in the offseason to try to finalize a trade involving Dion and go from there. If not, move on to other options. I think they were close. I can't see them just fading away from something like that, considering how close they were. But the goaltending situation certainly changes things a little bit. And you look at a team like San Jose that's looking to improve their goaltending situation for next season. They're not going to re-sign Antti Niemi. Maybe this is a situation that they look to in the offseason and get a little creative in a trade. But that ultimately comes down to how quickly Detroit wants to move on a goaltending situation.
Dave, where do we go from the latest chapter of the Joe Thornton San Jose Sharks dilemma? Yeah,
and I just want to add before you jump in there, Dave. Obviously, we know that Thornton didn't want to go anywhere. Has refused or not wanted to be traded. Was this an attempt indirectly or kind of in a cunning way by Doug Wilson to maybe elicit a little bit of, you know what, I've had enough, let me get out of here?
It wouldn't surprise me, despite all the stuff that's been being spewed out there from the Sharks, and I know ownership kind of got in the mix and tried to calm the situation a little bit. I can tell you that probably won't help from Joe Thornton's standpoint. He holds all the cards. He loves the team. He loves his teammates. He loves playing in the Bay Area, and it's ultimately up to him if he wants to move or not. Going into last season with all the talk, I was chatting with him about his situation, and absolutely not even a consideration of wanting to move out. If the team is junk next season or the season after that, and they're not even close to making the playoffs, he's got a year left or the last year of his deal, maybe at that point he'll consider waiving it. I still think he's going to stick around. I think the San Jose Sharks have other things they need to worry about, quite frankly, rather than Joe Thornton's captaincy or lack thereof at this stage. I think they're going to change the coach. I think Todd McClellan is out at the end of this season. They're obviously revamping their goaltending situation. I don't think Patty Marleau is back next season. There were some teams that had some serious inquiries about him closer to trade deadline. They didn't go to Patty Marleau and say, hey, we've got this on the table, would you waive? But he was well aware of the situation, despite what they may say. I don't think Marleau's there next season. Obviously, Niemi won't be. They've got some retooling they really need to do. And the young kids that they've got are still 2-3 years away from making an impact on the big club, from getting in there. They're young kids that they drafted, in their top rounds, some of their top prospects. So it's going to be an interesting, I'd say, 12 to 18 months for the San Jose Sharks moving forward. I can't see Joe Thornton giving in and saying, okay, fine, you got me. Fine, trade me, get me out of here. If the fan base turns around and says, we want Joe Thornton gone, then that'll play much more of a factor than whatever Dougie Wilson tries to do.
So are you looking at the draft then as a big time kind of deal event?
Well, across the league, yeah. I think for San Jose, I think that's probably when we may see something involving Patrick Marleau getting moved. I don't see, again, I just can't see Joe Thornton waiving his no move at this point, even after all these shenanigans. But I wouldn't be surprised at all if Patrick Marleau's traded around the draft.
He is Dave Pagnotta. TheFourthPeriod.com is the website. The Fourth Period on Twitter as well. Check out the magazine on newsstands when you have a chance. Dave, when are you next in Montreal?
Probably first round, I would imagine.
All right. Well, this time we got to get together. I promise. This time.
Dave, drink some meat, pal.
Hold on. This is breaking news. Mocon has just offered to pick up a tab.
For Dave and I, yes, when we go out.
Oh, just you two. I see. All right, Stefano, we got to bring our own wallets. I got it. Thank you, Dave.
I like it. Thanks, guys. See you later.